And I think the world's ready for a more intelligent conversation about it.
Great. And I'm glad that conversation started here on the 2020
Exactly.
podcast.
It started right here.
Roll the tape. Anytime in the future anybody's wondering when this conversation started, right here. We have it on tape.
Be on Jimmy Fallon. We'll be like, yeah, no, it all started in an optometry office.
Hello and welcome to the 2020 podcast, bringing clarity to business, entrepreneurship, and life. As you can see, I have an incredible guest with me today, but before I introduce him, I want to say, please, if you're watching this on your phone or if you're listening on your phone, please take a screenshot, post it on your Instagram story, Facebook story, tag me in it at harbirsayan.od. Let me know what you thought. You can also tag our guest, and I'll give you his handle and information later on. But please give us a rating on the podcast app. Give us a review. Let me know what you think so we can make the show better. Thank you so much. And today's guest is, many of you probably already recognize him, a longtime host of Love It or List It Vancouver, overall TV personality, overall just a personality.
We'll see about that.
MC, what else? Stage theater actor.
Yep.
And super charismatic fun guy, Mr. Todd Talbot. Thank you so much for doing this and for being here. I know you have a busy schedule.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, as always, what I'd like to start off with is kind of where you grew up and what your childhood was like and what you were interested in as a young person.
I got a question for you before we start.
Sure.
Do you remember my prescription? Come on.
Oh, dang. This guy had it planned from the beginning.
That's right.
I knew it.
Put you on the hot seat.
Yeah, you did. You know what?
You don't have to answer that question.
Can I look at your glasses?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
All right, here
Take
we
a
go.
look.
All right, guys. Here's an easy way to. All right, so there's a little bit of astigmatism. All right, this is for reading. So I'm talking like 1 plus 125 minus 75.
So based on that, can you tell someone's age?
Based on how you use the glasses, I could. Yeah. So if those are if you're trying to read something and you put them on, yeah, I could. I mean, you know, I would get. You want me to guess right now on camera? Otherwise,
see, I love Instagram, and and so the reason I phoned you to get glasses was because I was like editing photos and trying to get them crystal clear, and I was like, how come all my photos are blurry? And I was like, you know, I work with really great photographers.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't phone them up and say, you know, you suck.
All right, so
anyways,
now that we've done the eye exam and you've gotten your glasses based on my prescription, how does your Instagram feed look? Does it look clear?
Oh, it looks way better.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad. All right. Yeah. Anybody else out there who needs their Instagram feed to be more clear, please come and see me.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, you asked me a question.
Thank you for that. Yes. Tell me about your childhood. Where'd you grow up? What'd you do as a kid?
I moved around a lot when I was little.
Okay.
I grew up. I was born in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after I was born, we moved to Victoria. A couple different places in Victoria. Then my parents built a house on Salt Spring Island. We moved to Salt Spring Island. Nice. And my dad commuted back to Victoria every day, which didn't work so great as a family.
Sure.
So he took a job up in Tumbler Ridge, and so we all moved up there, which is kind of a northern mining town. It was just being built at the time. And we lived there for 2.5 years. And then we moved back to North Burnaby, which we're filming at Metrotown right now.
That's right.
So I remember, this is going to date me as well as my glasses. I remember when Metrotown was built. And
no way. Wow. Okay.
We used to come here for, before school shopping and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually kind of driving out here today to come here was a little bit of a reminder of my childhood.
No doubt. Okay, well, if anybody wants to know how old Todd is, just look up when
Metrotown was built. Yeah,
and you'll get an idea. Actually, you know what? On that note, before we go forward, something I forgot to do in the beginning is I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Nick Rye, whose office we are in here, Metropolis Eye Care in Metrotown. He has very graciously offered his space up to us. And I have to pay him a lot of money, but that's I'm just kidding. So I just wanted to put that in there. If you're watching, Dr. Rye, thank you. So you grew up, you moved around different places. Yeah. And you spent most of your childhood then in Burnaby?
Yeah, my high school years I spent here.
High school years.
Yeah, went to Burnaby North.
What was interesting to you as a kid? You're an actor now. Did that start when you were young?
Well, I did get involved in the entertainment business, I guess, when I was young, but I was mostly mostly focused on sports. I loved playing hockey. Okay. I wanted to, as a lot of young kids, I guess when I was growing up, we all wanted to play in the NHL.
Yeah.
Clearly that didn't pan out. I didn't grow tall until I was, 15 or 16. So I was getting rocked out there on the ice. Yeah. We're a big ski family, so I skied and raced and loved winter sports. And so, awesome. The whole kind of performing acting thing, my mom actually volunteered me to do a fashion show at my elementary school.
That's awesome.
I think in grade 7. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And they gave me, I got to pick one of the things that I was wearing for free.
Okay.
And so I don't know if I've made this up in my mind, but, I said to my mom, do people get paid to do this? And she's like, yeah. And so we actually had a very close friend of ours who was a professional actor. And, we didn't know anything about the industry. And so my parents reached out to him. And Harvey Miller, he ran the theater department at UVic. And so he connected me with an agent. And then I kind of started to get involved in the business that way.
Cool. Did your family see that at home, that you had sort of this knack for?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
No. I mean, I think the thing that my family saw most was my obsession with talking. Like my nickname was Motor Mouth. They even made a shirt about it, and I don't think anyone really talked about like monetizing those personal skills that like people do now.
Yeah, right.
But I love to talk. I love to talk to people. I didn't like going to bed. I like to stay up and talk to my parents. Wow. And so I don't know. It just kind of grew over time. Gotcha. My whole career has been unpredictable, I guess. It's been something where I've put a lot of focus and I've tried to follow my passion, but at the same time not be too strict about where things lead. And so it's zigged and zagged all over the place. Ending me up today talking with you and kind of the last few years in a situation that I would definitely not have predicted.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think too many people put a podcast interview with an optometrist on their list of things of potential outcomes.
All right.
Let me just,
bucket list done.
Well, tell me a bit about this. So one thing I do actually talk to people about is flexibility, and I think in my personal experience right now as a father of, now we just had our second baby. Right. We went into it very like, okay, whatever happens, happens. Like, I think that's a super important way to approach most things in life. But can you elaborate a little bit on and what that meant for you going through those earlier years?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I think that you have to be committed to a certain discipline to be successful. But there's also a combination of letting go of a certain idea. Yeah. And if something presents itself as an opportunity, I was actually, I had a coach many years ago who said, Todd, why don't you just try saying yes to everything? And at some point, as opposed to analyzing it right up front, say yes. And then at some point, if it's not working out or you don't like the feel of it or whatever, you can always say no.
Right.
And, I went to theater school in England. I was a little hesitant about making that choice, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to say yes. I can go for a year, and if I don't like it, I can always come home. I ended up finishing the program, being there for 3 years.
That's awesome.
But, these types of, accepting those things that kind of present themselves is one key component. And the other one is being able to see them when they present themselves. If you're not open to what people are suggesting or opportunities that are in front of you, you miss them.
Yeah.
And so there's an awareness factor.
For sure.
There's a willingness to jump in. And then the third component for me is the commitment side. I was going to say a little bit obsessive, but I think when I choose to do something, I'm 100% committed to it.
Gotcha.
And it may or may not work out. There's lots of times that it doesn't work out.
Right.
But as long as I feel like I've done everything I can know to do in order to make it successful, and preferably surrounding myself with people who also have that same attitude.
Right.
That's what just keeps you moving forward.
Yeah.
And then something else presents itself, and all of a sudden you're over here, and then you're over there, and you kind of look back on that journey and you think, man, there's no way I could have charted that path.
Right.
And my journey is a little bit different than a lot of people because I don't have a traditional career choice. There's no right or wrong way to do the industry that I'm in, which is part entertainment, and then we got into real estate. I mean, there's all kinds of different things going on. And I think part of that drive to move forward is also out of the necessity of being self-employed.
Right. Sure.
When you're single, the pressure is a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get into a relationship, and then you start having kids, and you start to evaluate different things from different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot in there, actually. I wanted to kind of unpack a bit there.
Okay.
But that's all excellent. But I think just to kind of acknowledge that when you're single, you can do things much, much more freely with a lot less pressure. But once family comes into it, all of a sudden you're like, I got to get something's got to work from here. But being self-employed definitely lights a fire under your ass.
Yeah.
Because you don't just necessarily, you're not guaranteed to have work next month or next week or whatever.
Right.
But maybe if we could diverge from the acting, the screen kind of stuff, but the real estate, some of the stuff I wanted to ask you about as well, because I think that's obviously very, very important. There's a huge business aspect to what you do there in real estate. Can you tell me about when you got started and what you had to learn in the beginning? Did you have any background in real estate to begin with?
No. I mean, I started a long time ago, but the real estate piece was actually a function of being self-employed. Why that grew was because, I looked at older people in the industry, theater actors and other actors, self-employed people, who were working in their late 60s and 70s, but not necessarily out of just because they wanted to do it, because they had to do it. And I thought to myself, I would like to have some flexibility and not have that pressure. And so I guess the first thing that got me into real estate was when I moved back to Vancouver. I moved back with my parents, and they, because I was working, they charged me rent. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be charged rent, I might as well move out, as much as I love you guys.
Yeah.
So that got me into the market first and foremost. Went out looking for a rental with a buddy of mine, couldn't find anything. I had some money saved up. And, that allowed me to get into the market. And actually, it's slight divergence from your question, but one of the things that surprises me now is people's lack of creativity about how to get into the market.
Okay.
I am really interested I love the conversation around young people and young families and how they can navigate a super expensive market like being in Vancouver or any major city in Canada. And one of the things is to, have realistic expectations. So I rented the second bedroom to my buddy for the first 3 years to offset the cost of mortgage and maintenance and property taxes and all that kind of stuff. And it worked out beautifully. So I got into the market that way. And then I learned about refinancing and I started investing in real estate. And I'd always had this idea that I wanted to buy older homes and renovate them.
Right.
I don't know where that came from. Maybe my parents built, like they built their own homes and stuff like that. So anyway, I went down that path, never intending it to be a business where I worked with somebody else.
Right.
It was designed to create a financial foundation that allowed me to do the thing that I was doing full time, which was acting in theater. It wasn't, a super high paying job, but I also wanted the ability to be able to say no. I didn't want to be at the mercy of having to get that next gig.
Right.
And that freed me up. Two things happened. Number one is you don't have that sense of desperation. Yeah. So you feel more comfortable in it. And the other thing is that desperation is the world's worst thing when you're applying for a job or you're auditioning for something. You know, you can smell desperation a mile away. It doesn't work in dating. It doesn't work it doesn't work professionally. It's a destructive force.
For sure.
So if you can create something that allows you to kind of breathe easy and be able to kind of control your own destiny, that is what real estate represented to me.
Yeah.
So, and that's always been my focus. You know, I started doing real estate workshops for the acting community, which
that's excellent.
Which started to kind of put me out there in the world as kind of a guy who was knowledgeable in this realm. And then, you know, one thing led to another, and ultimately led to a phone call about doing a show on HGTV. But you know, there was a lot of stuff before. There was a lot of stuff in between.
Well, that's so. Oh, wow, I didn't know that path. That's so great, because I was eventually going to ask you about the HGTV and love it or list it. But so that's so cool. So you took that step yourself to look into real estate and to invest.
Yeah.
Because this sort of starving actor, starving artist narrative is too common. But you took it upon yourself to just make sure that wasn't your story.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at it and thought, why do we have that narrative? It's amazing that you pinpoint that.
Yeah.
I think it's number one, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Number two is sometimes artists feel like if they're not struggling, then they're not legitimate. Right. And I was like, I'm not sure that those two ideas have to live together.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't we have some sort of financial foundation and still you know, create great TV shows or theater or whatever your chosen path is. And so, you know, that was my idea.
Gotcha.
Again, never really meaning for it to be something that was involving somebody else.
Right.
You know, I never wanted it to be a business for somebody else.
Right. That's amazing.
I'll just add one more thing.
Yeah,
is that
please.
The irony of pursuing things when you're not trying to develop, you know, a business or trying to make money, that being the primary focus, is that the money normally follows in a greater way. It's that initial motivation, you know. I think if your values and your passion are aligned, not to be too altruistic about it, but you know, if you lead with that, the money follows quickly behind that.
Okay.
If you lead with the money, that's when it kind of gets diluted and sometimes a little bit sleazy, and you know, it's a different motivation.
For sure. That's a very, very valuable point I think you just made there, because I think that's the desperation and that drive of just making money is kind of what leads a lot of people. And social media kind of being our primary platform where we're seeing a lot of people coming up now, you could see that it doesn't feel right.
There's something weird about it.
There's just something off. Maybe you can't pinpoint it, but I find that that's often what it is. And people will stress, and then they'll get more desperate, and you know, and they just don't get to where they want to be. Whereas if they can kind of let go of that, I assume this is what you're saying. If you can let go of the stress about the money and just genuinely do what you want to do with real love and real passion.
Whether it's, you know, optometry or acting or whatever it is. I mean, if that's your primary focus and you're putting everything you have into that, chances are the money will follow.
Yeah.
When the formula is reversed, that's when it can get a little bit sketchy. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may not be a straight line of like, I'm doing this job and then the money came in that straight line. Like in your experience here, it could be something completely random that you didn't even envision being an opportunity.
Yeah, and you never know where that money's going to come from, you know? Like the television show, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I'm primarily a real estate investor. Like that's kind of my driving force behind the real estate piece. And now on the educational side of things, like I'm really interested in how people are managing getting into the market and what we're building and why we're building it, where we're living, all that kind of. But when I did the TV show, most people look at something like that and go, well, that's your, like, my goodness, what a great opportunity from a financial standpoint. Well, I actually looked back over the last, we've been filming for over 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And in the first 6 years of that, I stopped investing because I got completely sidetracked and invested in doing this show and all the things that surround that.
Right.
Now, if I'd had stayed on the exact same track that I was on investing in real estate and bought one property per year in that time frame, if you just look at it from a financial perspective, I would have eclipsed the money that I made, doing that other path, like exponentially.
Okay.
So, you can't always make decisions based on that financial outcome. I guess ultimately at the end of the day, I just kind of follow my nose and hope that it aligns with what I believe in and my values. And, if my gut feels right about it, I normally keep going. And if it doesn't, I try and shift paths.
Well, that's excellent. And you trust your gut, you trust your intuition enough that you can make those changes.
Yeah, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Because your gut sometimes tells you things that you don't want to hear. and that's tricky. Or it tells you something that the public doesn't necessarily understand.
I gotcha.
And being in the public eye, you have a little bit of that pressure where people question why you do things or why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z. And some of those, more value-based decisions are tough to explain.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it's excellent that you're able to stick to your guns and go with it, at least most of the time.
Yeah, no one's perfect, for sure.
Fair enough. You're getting close, right?
Yeah.
We'll ask Rebecca.
By the end of this conversation, I'll have it sorted.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'm not any kind of financial expert or real estate expert, but I would love to, if you could, if you're willing to share a small tidbit, one or two small pieces of advice with the young people out there, maybe earlier in their career and they want to start investing. If we just use Vancouver as an example where you're comfortable speaking about it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, wherever you're watching, invest in what you know is my mantra. Until you're extremely experienced, if you live in Vancouver, don't look at buying property in Vegas or, a suburb of Toronto. You don't have enough information about that. You're going to have to rely on somebody else. So first of all, invest in what you know. If it's your primary residence, kind of at the beginning of your real estate journey, look at it as an investment first. So as opposed to, I see a lot of young people try and buy, something that resembles a dream home. I hate that term. Early on, your chances are you're going to stay there like 3 to 5 years. So prioritize location, future, capital appreciation.
Right.
How can you add value to this property, whether it's a condo or it's a detached home? So looking at it from that perspective and just thinking about yourself as the tenant, kind of wear two hats. I'm buying this as an investment, and I'm gonna be my tenant. And then I think the last piece would be have an end goal in mind.
Okay.
So understand, try and scope back and look at where you think you might be in 3 to 5 years, and understand, what are the options for this piece of property? The more options, the better. Can you rent it out? I find a lot of young people buy into, let's say, a building that doesn't allow rentals.
Right.
And all of a sudden their job changes and now they're handcuffed about what they can do. Or they're getting married and they're having a young family and that space doesn't work for them anymore. They can't rent it out, they have to sell. Now you're at the mercy of the market.
Right.
So you want to keep your options open, make sure it's rentable. Sweat equity, I'm a huge fan of that. I still do it. Before I was here, I was at a rental property where
that's awesome.
We're developing the basement part of it. So I still do that.
Yeah.
Be willing to roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
You can save a ton of money. And ultimately this is probably going to be one of your biggest investments you make in your life. You want to position the first one correctly.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much. That's I wasn't expecting to talk real estate advice, but I appreciate that, and I'm sure
I'll talk real estate all day long.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I wasn't prepared to, and like I said, I'm not the best, most knowledgeable, but so I'm always happy to hear the advice. So why don't we use that now? We transition over to Love It or List It. So 7 years, you said, is that correct?
Yeah, we've been filming for 7 years. Yeah, we just finished season 5. We shoot 26 episodes a season.
Wow, that's a lot of episodes.
There's a lot of episodes. Yeah.
Holy moly! And when does the shooting? Does all the filming happen in a certain time frame?
Traditionally we shoot all year round. So in the first 4 years, we just dovetailed, season 1 into season 2, 2 into 3. We just kind of kept rolling that way. So it's we don't work every day. Yeah. It's the schedule is all over the map, but yeah, it's definitely an all-encompassing thing from a schedule perspective. Not all shows are shot that way.
I got you.
Most shows would have a chunk of time where you can actually go and do something else.
I see.
Which is why you see lots of other people, either on HGTV or on other channels, where they can do multiple shows.
Right.
If you're doing the format that we do, it's very difficult.
Got you. I see. What would you say is a lesson that you've learned from this being on television, being in the public eye? A couple of things, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
I think one of the greatest things, and sometimes I forget it, is the fact that people enjoy themselves watching the show. Like, they have a laugh. If they have a laugh and you can give someone like a reprise from their everyday life, and they just have a little moment, whether they're watching with their spouse or their kids, it's hard when you're on television because you don't get to experience that. You only get to know that if someone tells you. And sometimes, you don't always necessarily believe what people tell you, but through social media and interacting with people in the public, when people say, they love the show and, they have a good laugh or get entertained through it. I think that's one thing that I have to remind myself that brings value to people, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's television. Yeah. It's entertainment. Right. So we're definitely not curing cancer. I think the other thing, more philosophically, being involved in watching these people kind of with the same requests over and over and over again. And the end product that we end up doing is very similar across the board. And I've also watched people struggle especially families struggle to be in an expensive city, and it made me ask myself questions about, is the model that we aspire to really what's most important? Right. And a few years ago, so we sold our big house and we shifted our focus back into the city, and kind of more from a lifestyle connectivity standpoint, smaller space, and exploring like what are the benefits of that choice in terms of how it affects us as a family, happiness, some of these types of things. What I've noticed is that some people get very obsessed with the end goal of how a house looks or the statistics of it on paper. And they gun for that and then try and build their lifestyle to fit into that idea. Right. Whereas instead of identifying exactly what their lifestyle is and what brings them joy and happiness and fulfillment, and functionality, and then trying to find a space that actually fits into that. So kind of reversing the model. Right. So
maybe a more flexible, if we go back to your flexibility, and I feel like maybe a more flexible approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think flexibility also is about money, Right. If you're carrying a massive mortgage and you're feeling burdened by that type of pressure, your flexibility of being able to do other things is limited. Yeah. And it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to invest in your business. It's hard to travel as a family. It's hard to spend time with friends and family, and it's tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was actually important that you went on that little bit of that philosophical tangent there, because it's something that maybe we don't speak about enough. We get caught up in the dream, right? And everybody just tries to keep fulfilling that. From your experience now, having moved from that bigger house to a smaller house and working on, doing your own work within the house and that kind of thing, would you feel that that's been a good move overall for yourself and the family?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've got the formula perfect, and I think it changes all the time. That's the thing about this dream home concept, or people having a certain idea, is that life is fluid. Right. Things are changing all the time, financially, size of family, people get divorced, people move out, move in, kids are born. Like, there's just so many dynamics that are going on that you cannot predict. What you think is going to happen right now is going to be very different a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So you want to build some of that flexibility into the formula of where you're living. But there's no question about it. I think one of the things is that we oversimplify the idea of where we want to live, and we kind of forget some of the other elements that get affected. So connectivity with your community is a big part of it. Travel time, the sustainability piece, which is becoming more and more prevalent in terms of conversation. And I think the housing industry is lagging way behind in that conversation. Right. Smaller footprint allows us to be a little bit more nimble. Quality is another thing. We see big houses being slapped together, not necessarily high quality construction, and therefore it doesn't have longevity, which then impacts future value, your investment, sustainability, environmental, all of those things play into it. So it's a complicated conversation about where you're going to live and what you're going to live in and how you're going to renovate it. And I think the world's ready for a more intelligent conversation about it.
Great. And I'm glad that conversation started here on the 2020
Exactly.
podcast.
It started right here.
Roll the tape. Anytime in the future anybody's wondering when this conversation started, right here. We have it on tape.
Be on Jimmy Fallon. We'll be like, it all started in an optometry office.
All right. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about your charitable endeavors, and I know you do a lot of work with the Covenant House Vancouver. Yeah. And I'd love for you to explain what you do, what they do, and how you help.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the great things about being in the position that I'm in is that, I can bring focus to things. And we work with all kinds of different charities all throughout the year. But the one that I guess I put most of my time and energy behind is Covenant House. So I started doing the Executive Sleep Out, which is an event that's held every year across North America. So on the same night, executives from across Canada and the United States sleep out. On the street, you get a sleeping bag and a piece of cardboard. And, it's not meant to replicate the experience, but it is meant to make you think. And there's two pieces to the evening. You go in and you meet with youth who are either in the program at Covenant House or have graduated from it, and you get to hear their stories. And I defy anyone to listen to those young people and the journey that they've gone on and have it not affect you. I mean, it keeps you coming back year after year. And then you go outside and you sleep out for the night, rain or shine. At 3 o'clock in the morning when you're cold and you're lying there and you're uncomfortable, you start to consider what this might be like. It just gives you a little glimpse into the life of some young person. I mean, Covenant House focuses on youth. And then most of us have to go to work the next day, and you immediately feel the impact of that. And then you can extrapolate, what happens if you were trying to hold down a job and you didn't have a place to live? So that's the cornerstone, really, from my perspective. And it brought together the ideas that, the realm that I play in, which is kind of in the real estate realm and house and home. And,
right, sure.
And also as a dad. You meet young people whose story is not that different from necessarily how you grew up, or there's circumstances that happen, there's influences that happen that are outside of their control. The thing that you realize quickly is that no one chooses that path. If you've ever thought when you see someone on the side of the street asking for money that, why don't they have a job? Or, come on, well, why did they choose that? Yeah, I can tell you wholeheartedly that it is not their choice. No one chooses to be in that position. So that's the impetus behind it. They do amazing work. And then in order to raise money, everyone commits to raising, I think, a minimum of $15,000 who sleeps out. So this is not a token gesture to show up and say, hey, I support you.
Yeah.
So I started doing a fundraiser every year, which you've been to.
Yes.
We change the theme every year. This year we're hosting it on October 17th.
Yep.
If you're watching this before October 17th, you can buy tickets and come and be a part of it.
Where do they buy tickets?
You can go to my Instagram feed. So it's link in the bio right there at Todd Talbot. That's probably the easiest way.
Sure.
Email me. I'll send you a link. You can ask me any questions you like.
Yep.
So every penny from that fundraiser goes to Covenant House because I rely on the donations of people that I know in order to come and do all the food and all the drinks and all the entertainment.
Right.
And so I leverage those connections in order to then pass on every penny. So
that's excellent. Yeah, I think that's often undervalued, underestimated how powerful it can be for you to leverage your connections and your influence on others to bring in and put on this nice, beautiful event.
Yeah.
Last year, the potty time was awesome. But then that draws in people then and they're willing to contribute. 15,000 is a lot of money. So it's an incredible contribution.
We'll go way above that this year.
Yeah,
as well.
of course. I think pretty sure you went well above it last year.
Yeah.
Amazing contribution on the part of all the executives who do this. And
Totally.
What an incredible initiative to sleep outside. Because, it's in November.
Yeah, it's in mid-November.
Vancouver is generally a milder climate, but November is not warm, right?
Nor is it dry.
Nor is it dry. Exactly. You get here now mid-September or we're in October. I had just had a baby, right?
Yeah. You get all the passes.
We're in October now. By the time you get to October, it's raining most of the time. So to sleep outside is pretty incredible. Good for you. And good on everybody else who participates. To wrap up, I have two final questions for you. So
I'll try and be brief.
No, please don't.
I know I'm motor mouth. I'm verbose.
This is why I'm so happy that you did this, because I love all the information that you have to share. Number one, if you can imagine stepping back into a time machine and traveling to a specific place and time when you were maybe going through a difficult time. If you want to explain when that time is, that's fine. If not, just tell me or tell us, if you don't mind, what you might share with younger Todd as far as now wisdom and knowledge that you have at this stage, at your current unmentioned age.
But I need glasses.
Yes, you need reading glasses, so that tells us something.
That's a great question. I think one of the things, I don't know if I'm just hardwired this way, that I generally have an optimistic view of life. And so I really don't look back and beat myself up too much about choices that I've made or choices that I didn't make, because I truly believe, I know this sounds like a horrible answer, but I truly believe that all of those are a function of where I'm at now. So I think the thing that I would go back and maybe tell my younger self would be to potentially just relax a little bit more, and have more fun, enjoy kind of in the moment. It's a thing that I'm challenged by now. I look back and I've had some incredible opportunities and some awesome adventures. And I think sometimes I am too critical of where I'm at in that moment in time, which then kind of kills the joy and the and really experiencing it fully. And sometimes I look back now and I go, man, that was so great. Why didn't I enjoy it more?
Right.
So I think for me, that's always a constant battle.
Gotcha. All right. Enjoy the moment. Savor
the moment. And it's that balance of driving forward. Like, I have a lot of intrinsic drive and search in me. And so wrestling with that is, I'm constantly in that battle.
Gotcha. So the final question is, everything you've achieved to date, all your success, being on TV and the real estate and all of that, how much of that would you say is due to luck and how much is due to hard work?
Well, I guess it depends on what your definition of luck is. You know, I think we can sometimes ignore or underestimate some of the things that we're fortunate for.
Sure.
Which is, you know, being born in Canada, you know, the family that you get born into, the parents, the circumstances, all of those types of things, which I think can create an opportunity for people. Mm-hmm. And I consider myself lucky in terms of that. But I am I'm obsessive about hard work, maybe to a fault. I do think that you know, success and achievement is a function of your commitment and hard work that you're willing to put in. Striking a balance in there is sometimes tricky. But I would say that, you know, sometimes I have looked, when you get asked to answer some of these questions, it does force you to look back and kind of go, I wonder how that managed to happen. I do think that a combination of hard work and the impression that you leave on people is kind of the magic formula, at least for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the most talented actor in the world or television host, or really anything, you know, real estate investor, husband, father. But I do think that people can rely on me, they can trust me, and they know that I'm going to give them 100%. And I think at the end of the day, that's what keeps that engine moving forward.
Yeah.
So I would weigh more on the hard work side as opposed to the luck. But the luck, I guess, is one of those foundational components.
Sure, absolutely. I love that. And I definitely feel the same way about being born in this country. Is an extremely lucky thing, considering.
And in Vancouver, I mean, you know, there's lots of things to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
But I don't think I've never met anyone who has success that isn't an extremely hard worker.
Gotcha. But
they might not show it.
Yeah.
Some people like to show hard work. They like to. It's very popular these days to say, "I'm so busy. I'm working so hard."
Yeah.
Like, I try and defend against that because no one likes to hear that.
Yeah.
Either they show it or they don't, but it's in there for sure.
Awesome. I love it. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. The last thing I'd like you to do is share how people can contact you. You already mentioned your Instagram handle.
Yep.
At Todd Talbot, ToddTalbot.
You got it.
Any other way, email or
yeah, I mean, people can, Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find.
Sure.
Hopefully you can't find my cell phone number, but I do get some random call. Wow. How did you get this number? Through my website, ToddTalbot.ca. You can email me through there. Yeah. Social media. I still manage all of my social media channels. I try and answer everyone's questions.
Amazing.
You know, it's like I said, it's pretty easy to find me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if you guys, if you don't follow Todd already, please do. As I mentioned, super fun, charismatic guy, and there's always something to learn from him, whether it's real estate or design, you know, interior design and TV stuff. It's all there, so it's awesome. Thank you again, sir. Very, very,
Thanks,
very
man.
much appreciate this.
Yeah.
And again, thank you to you all for listening and watching. Whether you're watching this on your phone or listening on the podcast app, please take a screenshot. Throw it up on your Instagram story and tag me or tag Todd and let us know how you liked it. And of course, I will see you guys in the next episode.
I won't.
Maybe we'll
do a two-parter. You'll be like, oh, gotta listen to that guy again.